friends, welcome back to Call Me After Coffee. My name is Brie. If you're new here, welcome. If you've been around for a while, thanks for coming back. Today's video is going to be my historical fiction-a-thon recommendations. These are books that I have read before, books that I really enjoyed, and I tried to pick some that weren't just World War II historical fiction because I have shared my favorites of those multiple times over the last couple of years. Not that they won't come back again, but I wanted to focus on kind of some new things that I haven't shared maybe quite as often as those ones. The first book on the stack here is Montauk by Nicola Harrison. You guys have seen me talk about this one before. I definitely have mentioned this one a few times. This is pre-World War II. It's set sometime in the 30s. I don't remember exactly when, but it's set in the 30s. And it's about this woman who is in a really bad marriage and she can't get out of it, and her husband essentially kind of ships her off to this summer lake house resort type thing to spend the summer with like high society while he can be nasty in town. There's a lot that happens in this book. This is a romance. This does have stuff in it that I don't typically like, but I loved the way this book was put together. I really did enjoy it. I don't want to spoil anything, but this one definitely had like a bittersweetness to it that I feel like I can't go into because it would be massively spoilery. But I loved this book. It made me cry. I actually have a vlog of after I finished reading this where I'm like crying, and if I can find it, I'll link it in a card up above. But I really enjoyed this. I liked our main character, Beatrice. I really did enjoy her. I thought it was a really fast read. I got this as an e-arc a couple years ago before it came out, and I loved it so much I went out and bought myself a hardcover, and I don't often buy new releases, so that is saying something. I do want to reread it at some point. I really loved this, and I hope that I love it as much the second time around, but I feel like this is definitely one that I need to reread at some point because I really did enjoy it. The next one that I have here is Things in Jars by Jess Kidd. This is another one that you guys know that I love. This one, Jess Kidd is like one of my new favorite authors. I need to make some fresh content for you guys and update some of my favorite authors and just talk about them and do like some favorite author gush videos or something because I haven't in a long time. But Things in Jars was such a fun book. It was dark and gritty and weird. It's very weird. You have to suspend disbelief. This is, I don't even really know exactly how to put it. It's like a historical fiction, but also a mystery, but also like magical realism slash like paranormal, I guess, because one of the main characters is a ghost. But it has this really odd cast of characters. I loved them. What is the main character? Bridie Devine is our main character. And then I think our side characters are Rudy and Cora. It's been a while since I read this. I read this at like the very beginning of 2020, I think. But I loved this book. I loved all the characters. It was so fun and dark and interesting, and I loved the mystery unraveling. Like, it was just not something, I wasn't expecting it to be what it was, but I didn't really have any expectations of what it was, if that makes sense. Like, I didn't know what it was about, and I feel like it's one that's hard to explain. But I really loved this one, so if you're looking for one of those like genre-bending books, but also with like a historical aspect to it, because it's all set, I don't remember which year, but it's set in like, I don't know, I want to say like the 1800s or something? I don't remember exactly what year it's set in, or what years it's set in, because it's kind of like a dual timeline, but they're all historical. Anyway, love this book a lot. Hum If You Don't Know the Words by Bianca Marais is another one that I absolutely loved, and I can't talk about it enough. It's one of my favorite books from 2020, which is another video that I need to do still. But I loved this book. It was so good, and I loved the characters in it. We follow a 10-year-old girl, I think named Robin, and then I can't remember how old the woman is, maybe like 40s, 50s, and her name's Beauty, and she's searching for her daughter, and Robin just lost her parents, and just the way that they come together and just unfolding the story is so good, and I could not put this book down. Like, I literally couldn't put it down. I cried. It was so good. I loved it so much. It's set during apartheid. I can't remember if I said that or not. I feel like I did. But that's the general time frame, so like 70s, I think. Anyway, this one, absolutely loved it. The next book on the pile is Where the Crawdads Sing by Delia Owens. This is one of the ones that I painted, and I love it. But I loved this book so much. It was unputdownable. I feel like I read it in like 2 or 3 sittings. I just needed to know the story. And even though it's a historical fiction, but like a mystery, I would reread this. I loved the atmosphere. I loved the way that it really explained where she was. I could picture everything. I could hear everything. I loved the nature aspects of this book. I also loved Kaya. I thought she was very interesting for a character. I thought all the characters were quite interesting. I loved Jumpin'. It just, this book was so good, and I loved it, and I was afraid that the hype monster was going to get me for this one, and it did not. I loved it. I understand why so many people did enjoy it. I was a little bit like, actually I don't want to say that. I was about to say something, but I feel like it would spoil stuff. With a mystery, it's so hard to explain because I don't want to like lead in any particular direction because I feel like that's spoilery, and I was very good at not getting spoiled at all before I read this. For those who don't know, this is about a little girl named Kaya who has to grow up in the marsh alone. Her family, like her entire family, neglects her and just leaves her, and she ends up just living all alone at like the age of 7 or something, maybe 7 or 8. But there are other like characters that she interacts with throughout the book. Anyway, I don't want to say too much, but somebody dies and they think she has something to do with it, and that's pretty much like the plot. So it jumps back and forth. It's more of a kind of a dual timeline. You get to see her grow up, but then also you get like her current state as well. But I really enjoyed this. I thought the writing was beautiful, and definitely recommend this one as well. The last book that I have on the pile is Greenwood by Michael Christie, and I feel like this one is one that is very underrated and doesn't get talked about enough. This one I read in the summer, and I loved it. I thought it was so good. If you have a chance to get the audiobook, my library had it, so I just downloaded it and listened to it while I read the book. And it has a really awesome cast. They all have different accents, and it's so good. Some of the characters in this book I loved, and some of them I loathed. It was very polarizing depending on the character. There was, maybe not all of them, but specific ones I attached myself to more than others. It's a weird one because it actually starts in the future, but then it goes back like quite far. I can't remember. I think it's like 3 to 5 generations. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head how many levels there are. Might just be 3. Could be 4 though. Really? Oh, 1, 2, 3. Okay, at least 4. There's a lot of characters in this book, but I would say Everett is one of my most favorite characters in the book, and I loved the audiobook. Like, whoever played his voice is like spot on what I would imagine him to sound like, but maybe that's just because I listened to it along with the book. But anyway, the audiobook was great. This book was great. I don't really know how to explain it, except for it starts out with this woman who is living on an island, and she doesn't really know anything about her past, and then she ends up getting this diary or something, and she starts learning about like her family history, but there's like a lot of cans of worms that need to be opened, and it's sad, and some things are heartwarming, and it's a really good book. It's very character driven. It's just, oh, I wish I could explain it to you better. I feel like I need to reread it to really like remember everything that happened, but I loved it when I read it, so I wanted to throw this in there as well. Alright, that's everything that I've got for today's video. Those are some recommendations of some books that I read over the last year or so, and I wanted to share them with you guys. Let me know down below, are there any books that you would recommend for Historical Fiction-a-thon? Are you participating? Are any of these books on your list? Did any of them like pique your interest or anything like that? While you're down there, if you haven't already, please subscribe and hit the bell so you don't miss future notifications, and I will talk to you guys all soon. Thanks so much.